Hey, this is Jacob with Westcott. Today we're going to break down a few different lighting setups we used on a recent horror shoot. If you haven't seen the trailer for this project, we'll have it linked below. Our goal was to create a very kind of dark and moody look, something that really complemented the story and the characters that are in it. We only shot all this probably in about like 4 to 5 hours is what we had time frame wise. And one of the things that really made like that shorter time frame possible was our Flex system, being able to just pick up our lights, take them with us. They aren't heavy, so it didn't require, a lot of rigging, a bunch of people. There were only 3 of us on set, plus an actor, so there wasn't a lot of us there. We needed to rig up a lot of different lighting setups, so we shot inside of a smaller cabin, a car, and a few other locations as well. The versatility of the Flex system really allowed us to do that because we were able to mount this in places that you can't mount traditional lights, like up in higher locations, even gaffing it to things like a window. And that's something with more traditional lighting setups is a little bit more difficult. They require more rigging, things are heavier. The first place we started shooting was the interior of the cabin. We built our set kind of in the dining area. It was a good location that had some open walls where we could put like some monster portraits and stuff. That really allowed us to build that set around our actor. The first light we started with was our key light. So that was our 1x1 RGBW mat, and that was in a Flex China cube just mounted right above her. The walls in the cabin are white, so they really wanted to bounce all the light from the China cube onto the wall. So we put the blocks on to keep that from happening. That allowed the left side of our actor's face to fall in the shadows, which helped create that moody look and added a little bit of depth to the scene. For the color temperature, the light was set to 2800 Kelvin. Our camera color temperature was set to 3200 Kelvin. This stayed pretty consistent throughout the whole shoot. For the next light that we used in this setup was also important, and this was used actually in almost every scene, and that's our 2x2 bicolor mat. This acted as a big moonlight source. We had it sitting 3 to 4 feet away from the furthest window. We had it angled toward the door. Intensity-wise, we ran it around 7 to 10%. As you can see, it acted as a large moonlight source spilling through those windows. The dimmer allows you to run it off of a V-mount battery, so we just ran it off a battery the whole time, so we didn't have to constantly look for cords and places to plug that in, especially when we were using it out in some more remote locations. The next scene that we lit was our bedroom scene. This one might be the easiest one because it only used one light. For that, we just gaffed a 1x2 mat to the window and dialed it to 6000K. Normally you'd want to rig the light outside the window like we did in the first scene, but we didn't have access to the roof, and sometimes you don't, so we adapted. We just put it right there on the window and it worked. For the exterior shots like this, we had the Flex 2x2 panel about 5 to 6 feet behind the right side of the camera. Without that light, it would have been completely dark outside and none of this footage would have been usable. There were no street lights, there were no ambient lights, we were out in the woods, so there was nothing lighting this thing up. We also didn't need the mat to be very bright. We only dialed it in maybe 15 to 20%, so not super bright at all, especially when we have it that far back. We just wanted it bright enough to light up the scene, give it that moonlight look, but not fill it in too much where it's spotty and it looks artificial. The other reason we didn't dial it up very high is because we didn't want it to overpower the flashlight that the actor was using. If the actor's flashlight is as bright as the ground, it doesn't look right. For the next setup, we used this building that was a couple hundred feet away from the cabin. We used 3 different light sources for this scene. The first being that same 2x2 mat again. We had it about 4 to 5 feet away from the door, pointed toward the other doorway you can see across over here. And that was dialed in so you could just barely see kind of our ghost apparition that we have over there, but also just enough where you're still getting good fall off outside and seeing those shadows. The next light we were showing in here is our 1x2 RGBW mat. We have that inside the fire pit, dialed into this kind of orangey look. We really wanted that orange to contrast the blue coming in from the outside. We controlled that matte and dimmer using the Luminaire app, so we were able to create this animated fire effect with it that looked pretty good. The last light that we used in this scene is pretty obvious, but it's also very intentional. It was our flashlight. We made sure to use a flashlight that was cooler tone versus a warm one. We really still wanted that to contrast the fire, especially since the light was built to kind of cut through the darkness and reveal different aspects inside the room, such as the fire ring right there. You can kind of see how it adds a little bit of depth to it, shows the size. The next scene we ended up shooting was our car scene. This was done pretty easily with our 2x2 mat again. Yes, we love this mat. We ended up pushing it through a 4x scrim frame with a full stop of diffusion. This light backlit several details of the car, such as the seat, dash, exterior of the car, and then our ghost that's sitting in the back. We needed a key light on our actor, but we still wanted to keep it very dark and contrasty, so we were very careful with how we added light to the scene. So we pulled back the sunroof of the car and placed just a 1x1 panel in there, and we only used about half the panel. We covered up the other half using the sunroof. We only had to dial this light to about 10% intensity to just add just enough light for our actor. This last lighting setup that we used was a little different, but still kept in that moody look, and it was kind of our fever dream nightmare sequence. We wanted to make sure that the scene was lit much differently than the rest. We really wanted it to bring us into a different world. We found this small trail behind the cabin and it was perfect for this sequence. We used the gel mode on our RGB WMATs to dial in the blue tone and kind of that reddish pink tone. When I'm shooting with more saturated colors like that, I always recommend viewing your camera through a LUT, whether it's through your monitor or inside the camera, just so you know how that looks at the end, because a lot of saturated colors can sometimes act funky with different camera sensors. For the lighting placement, we wrapped our 1x1 light on a tree. That was it. This was the one dialed to the red tones. We did this to get the red tones to spill on the trees in the background that gave it kind of this otherworldly, stylized feel. And then our 1x2 mat was just held at the edge of the trail. We did this for a couple different reasons. One, we couldn't really get a light stand in the area that we wanted. It was kind of off balance. The other reason is we were doing kind of a walking shot. So we needed the light to kind of move with our actor a little bit, so it was easier just to hold the mat itself as just a bare mat. The 1x2 mat itself weighs less than 2 pounds, so it's not very heavy if you just need to kind of pick it up and just carry it around for 10-15 minutes. As you can see, a lot of these setups really play into those shadows and are very moody. It's something you'll see in a lot of horror films like this or thrillers. If you enjoyed this video, let us know what setups you liked in the comments below. Also subscribe to Westcott Lighting for more great tutorials on filmmaking and photography. Thank you for watching.